All right, Ash, you ready?
I am ready.
Let's do it. Okay, welcome everyone to the last day of our sixth annual TeCK Week YQG. I am thrilled to be here with you today to close out this week-long celebration of our regional tech community. My name is Adam Castle, and I serve as the Director of Venture Services here at WEtech, and I have the pleasure of overseeing the design and delivery of the advisory services we provide to our community. For those of you that are new to TeCK Week YQG, TeCK Week YQG is a series of collaborative events spearheaded by WEtech Alliance, and the week brings together tech leaders, founders, talent, researchers, investors, expat, newcomers, and the broader community. And TeCK Week YQG is a fantastic opportunity to share knowledge, network, and learn from each other. And if this is your first TeCK Week session or you've been with us all week, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you so much for attending. Time is really such a precious resource, and I am so grateful, and the WEtech team is so grateful that you're spending some of yours here today with us. Now, this week would have not been possible without our generous sponsors and partners, and I'd like to thank the Province of Ontario, the Government of Canada, Invest Windsor-Essex, SnapP, i.d.e.a Fund, the University of Windsor, Little Heart Social, Plug and Drive, the Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network, the Ontario Centres for Innovation, Nexe Innovations, and Spoken Artists. Now, over the past 5 years, TeCK Week YQG has brought together some of the brightest minds in the industry to discuss important themes such as cross-border partnerships, diversity, equity, inclusion, technology predictions, mobility, and so much more. New this year, we're excited to introduce the new theme that's the focus of today's discussion, which is green technologies, as we strive to make a positive impact on our environment, which is really that topic that we're here to discuss today. I'm so excited to dive in with our guest. If you're looking for more information on what TeCK Week is, please head to wetech-alliance.com/TeCK-Week-YQG. Now on to a couple housekeeping items, and then we'll dive right into this conversation. So first, to be considerate and accommodate everyone attending today, we're doing things just a little bit differently this meetup by leveraging our Zoom webinar. So you might not be able to see all the attendees, but you will have ample opportunity to engage with our guests during that Q&A session. Please feel free to use the chat feature located at the bottom of the video window to engage with session attendees. You may submit questions at any time throughout the session using that Q&A box located at the bottom of the display window. You can also upvote the questions you want answered. Should you experience any technical difficulties, we have John Mark Vachon as our marketing director in the back end waiting to help solve those for you. So feel free to just send a message and he'll take care of that right away. This session will be recorded, and a video file, audio file, and relevant links will all be available on WEtech Alliance's YouTube channel and included in the attendee follow-up email. Finally, let's make sure everyone knows that TeCK Week YQG is where it's at, so be sure to share your hashtag TeCK Week YQG experience on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Now, I would like to welcome in our speaker today, Ash Guglani, President and Director of Nexe Innovations, to the virtual stage. Welcome, Ash. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. So Ash, to start us off, can you give us some insight into your background and how you ended up the president of a company with the ambitious mission to replace everyday products with plant-based material?
Sure. So yeah, I come from an investment banking background. I used to be involved in capital markets, helping companies, whether it's M&A or financing or strategy. I was mainly in the resource sector. With my background, obviously, the company's been able to go public, has raised a significant amount of capital as we get ready to scale. It's been something that, I never thought I'd see myself as an entrepreneur, but, the long hours we work in while in investment banking and capital markets, you essentially are one. So I've really learned to love being an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. And I can't wait to sort of dive into that experience more today. Now, Nexe recently opened a Windsor production facility, and I know there's some news this week about ramping up that facility and how you're sort of doing with getting in and getting situated. I'm curious, what was it that attracted you to the Windsor area to begin with?
Well, you know what? I mean, for us, look, we've been working in BC for a long time on the West Coast. We've learned a lot about, we've been in R&D for a long time, and we learned what we really needed to get this to scale. We really learned a lot about our requirements on from an automation perspective, and Windsor happens to be a great neighborhood for us just due to the fact that we're actually right by the U.S. border. I think most single-serve pods I think it's close to 90% of single-serve pods are sold south of the border. But the bigger attraction for us was really Windsor itself, with its automotive experience, automation experience, skilled labor force, and it hasn't disappointed to date.
That's awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you here. And I know you're sort of getting your facility up and running. And we saw this announcement this week in the news that, you're going to be really ramping up production of the coffee pods. And I happen to have a whole bunch of them here with us. We've been enjoying them sort of all week at WEtech Alliance. And I have to say, like, some of the best coffee, as a new coffee drinker, some of the best coffee I've had to date. I'm curious, what's the difference? So I've got an old pod here, one that we would normally use. It's plastic. It says it's recyclable. And then I've got the Nexe Innovations pod. Tell me, what am I looking at? What am I holding here? And why is it different?
So the whole purpose of when Keurig, or the inventors of Keurig, had this idea about making a convenient way to drink coffee, they weren't thinking about the environment. Or sorry, I don't want to say they weren't thinking about the environment. I don't think they realized how big this was going to become. The whole purpose, what Nexe is doing, is we're bringing convenience, but we're also bringing that environmental footprint, or avoiding an environmental disaster is probably the way to say it. Before, when you first had your first K-Cup, you put it in the machine, you drink it, you throw it in the garbage. Well, the problem is there's 20 billion plus of those just on the K-Cup side that are being thrown in the garbage annually, and still growing at about 8.5%. So it's a compounding problem. Then the best solution at that time was, okay, we got to do something about this. Okay, well, let's come out with a recyclable capsule. Problem with the recyclable capsule is you got to take the lid off. Lid goes in the garbage. You got to take the grounds out. That goes in the compost. You got to take off the filter. You do that 2 or 3 times, you're probably not going to do it very often. I mean, it's taking away the whole convenience factor of a pod. And that's where the opportunity lies for us. Is we have the opportunity to become a leader and become very disruptive with our technology, not just for coffee, but other form factors as well later down the road. But what we're doing is we're bringing convenience back. Everything in our pod is compostable, including the coffee grounds. So it's a solution that's taken a long time. It's taken us a while to get here. It's not an easy technology. It's not easy materials to work with, but we're here now. And I think from a disruption standpoint, I think we've got an opportunity to be global leaders, really.
That's fantastic. And I mean, we're so glad to host that here in Windsor. When we think about green technologies, it's an area that's really new for Windsor and Essex. And so, we think about the automotive space, we think about the greenhouses. And so there's so many natural complements, I think, to that industry vertical and the big industries that are already here. I'm curious, as you're developing out this pod, how many different iterations did you go through before you got to this composite that you have now that's fully compostable from like entire package?
Oh, you know what? Like I said, we've been at this since late 2015. So that's quite a few iterations. I mean, it's probably one of the hardest form factors to make because of the high heat and the water pressure that arises from a coffee system, right? Whether it's an espresso or a Keurig system. It took us a while just to get the formulation right and the recipe. So, we do have patents around our pod and some of the components inside our pod, but we've got a lot of trade secrets and a lot of IP and a lot of sweat put into actually getting the right formulation. So it doesn't break down in the coffee machine, but it does break down post-use in a compost facility. That took a long time.
So I'm curious to know, you made this jump from the space in finance and the face in sort of funding and capital markets, over to this green space. What was that catalyst for you, or why did you sort of say, like, here's why and now? And I know that Surrey and the space out there on the West Coast, they are really leading the way in a lot of ways, with this, like, new sort of green technology and innovations. What was that catalyst for you? Sort of what was the driver?
You know what? For me, I just had at that time we had our first child. I was working long hours in the resource world, and for me, it really became one day talking to my wife about after meeting Darren, and she's saying, "Well, look at all the coffee pods you actually put into the garbage every day." So after looking at our garbage can, it was something I was like, "Oh, you know what? This could be massive if we could do it." And I knew the risks going in, and we've been prudent, we've been diligent, and we're there.
That's fantastic. And, I followed the updates that you've been putting out to investors, and you've got such great momentum behind this company now. It's really interesting to see it really scaling up and turning into something sort of next level. And I know, coffee pods, sorry, are just the start of this for you. So maybe explain a little bit more about how this technology can be used on a much broader spectrum, right? Because there's a lot of single-use packaging that gets put out there, and a lot of single-use packaging now that we're trying to be more self-conscious or more conscious about environmental factors, but some of them just don't have that convenience factor. And I love that that's sort of what you've really married here with this. I think about the paper straws that we're getting now in takeout drinks, and within 4 minutes you're just chewing on paper and some gross drink in your mouth. That's not the case with this. You can run this through these incredibly hot machines, and out comes perfect coffee every single time. So maybe explain a little bit about that, of like where this goes in the future.
Sure. So look, the whole purpose of coming to Windsor was, we've actually achieved this massive milestone in Windsor that we weren't really able to get going in Surrey, and that is making our own components in house. So we have two sides of our business. We have our component manufacturing side, which includes the compounding of the resin, as well as crystallizing the resin, as well as actually injection molding the resin to actually form the part. That's something that we never did in Surrey. Obviously, with the some of our automation partners here, as well as the skilled labor we've hired to date, we're able to accomplish that. So we've made this significant investment to make components in house, and that's really going to be the driver, because we have the ability to prototype or do rapid prototyping, and we have good partners that will help us make a good prototype mold, and we could really get into other avenues when we're ready. But right now our focus is we need to show scale on the coffee side and continue to really disrupt that end, and then we'll start looking at what opportunities make sense. We've gotten a lot of attention in the past from dairy. We've also recently gotten a lot of attention, or a lot of asks from the cosmetics world. There's a big waste issue in cosmetics as well. So
for sure,
now the main thing is we've made the investment and we have the infrastructure in house to start looking at things. But again, I don't want to get away from the focus right now of showing that we could scale coffee. Once we do that, yeah, I think we'll be open for business on other form factors.
Yeah, and that makes total sense, right? Is get really good at what you're doing now, and then sort of move into other areas. And that's definitely how we coach businesses too, right?
Yeah.
Decide what your main commodity is first.
Yeah. And like I said, once we show we can nail the coffee pod, I mean, it's probably one of the hardest form factors to make. So once we show we're going the right way on that, I think everything else will be not as stressful. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that definitely makes sense. Yeah, something that I love about this story is, I've been in economic development now for almost 12 years. And we've always focused in on diversification of economy, right? You hear that a lot in Windsor. And one of the things that we've really focused on in the last few years is the automobility space, right? We've got this massive EV battery factory that's coming very soon, and a ton of really great suppliers that come with that. But we also have a really large manufacturing base that have been in the automotive space now for a century or longer in some cases. And what we're
Right.
seeing is this tremendous opportunity, not only to move into the evolution of automotive, which we know is still going to be cyclical and will still have the same sort of automotive type lenses to it, but then there's stuff like this that comes up in consumer goods and making these types of items can be profitable as well. And it's really amazing to see companies like yours moving in, connecting with local manufacturers and local talent and local capabilities to take what we've learned over the last 100+ years in automotive and apply it to something totally unique and totally novel. I think that's the way of the future for the 45,000 jobs that we have here in manufacturing is in this like really interesting stuff and how we move it forward. I'm curious to know, have you, if you had any setbacks in terms of consumer behavior? How have people sort of taken to this as opposed to the traditional sort of K-cup that they're used to now over the last decade that this has been out?
No, you know what? We don't anticipate any change. Obviously, what we're doing is a little bit more positive, or not a little bit more, a lot more positive. But the one thing to also think about is, it's good to have a pod that's compostable, but it's really good to make sure that that pod has a really good cup of coffee. So, even though sustainability and compostability is priority number one, we wanted to make sure that you still have a good experience with a cup of coffee. So, I know you're a new coffee drinker, but I'm sure others in the office have noticed for a coffee that comes out of a single serve pod, it's probably one of the best coffees you could have in a K-cup.
Oh, and I can echo that too. Like we've got about 200 different varieties of coffee that we've gotten and we offer to our clients, and this is far and away the quality is there. What I would say too, the consistency is there, and I think that's really different from cup to cup. That I found that every single cup tastes a uniform way, right? I think that's important.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's great to know that, you don't have to do too much education and that the product, because of the quality level, it sort of sells itself from that regards. And they don't have to think so much about, whether or not it's compostable versus not. It's just convenient is convenient, right?
Absolutely.
Very cool. Can you share a little bit about some of the plant materials or some of the types of plants that you're using to make these types of products without giving too much away? I think about the sort of space of material manufacturing and material innovation, and it's so broad. You have people making stuff out of mushrooms now, and people making stuff out of plastics and runoff from agriculture. How did you decide sort of which direction to take it in when you're looking at which plant material to move with?
Well, like I said, we've done a lot of research, a lot of testing over the last 7 years, and we're using a bio-based plastic, which is PLA, which comes from not the main use of corn, but it comes from it's an offtake of corn, but it comes more from the waste portion of corn. So we've got a good partner in NatureWorks right now. That's our one of our main suppliers, and I'd say PLA, polylactic acid, is probably something that you hear more and more about as they ramp up as well. But it's for what we're trying to do with and to meet all the parameters that we need for this capsule, it's probably one of the best materials to use.
Very cool. So, you touched a little bit on a partnership or supplier partnership that you have. Can you talk to any of the other sort of partnerships and collaborations that you've got with companies or organizations in that green tech space, and how do you work together with other folks in the area?
Yeah. So look, we've had good relationships in BC. We've worked with UBC. We've worked with some federal government bodies for some funding. We've also worked with Surrey Biofuels to make sure that we actually do have one of the first. Excuse me. We have one of the first capsules that we've actually done a real industrial study on. And that study was really the driver of where we are today. Is in the real world, our pod can break down very quickly. Now, what we're doing in Windsor is, we've got great relationships that we're going to start spending some time with. Obviously, we've got Invest Windsor-Essex that we've worked with, and then we've got we're building a good relationship with St. Clair, and probably at some point we've been trying to get together with the University of Windsor. So I'm sure we'll be using a lot more local partners to take our company to the next level as we scale.
That's great. I was at the engineering University of Windsor engineering capstone showcase, and was just blown away by the industry partnerships that you see on display there. And being in this space for as long as I have, I've seen it move from here are projects that we've created for ourselves as part of a demonstration of knowledge, and here's projects that we've created for industry. And wow, are those projects like really, really informative? They move things forward, and you see industry so happy with those collaborations. So I'm excited to see you sort of roll out more partnerships as time goes by, and the same we've seen from the college as well, that we've attended the Ford capstone showcase that they have every year, and we're just blown away by the quality of work that those students are doing. Is that sort of part of your strategy here, is working with those universities and colleges, obviously to fill your talent gap too? And have you been finding the kind of talent that you're looking for locally?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, the university is, the education systems there in Windsor are great. But, even outside that, there is a really strong talent pool for everything we need, from engineers to production to QA people who understand food. Obviously there's been a big, you guys have had a great footprint in agriculture with the greenhouses, as well as just down the street with cannabis at Leamington. So you know what? It honestly, I don't think we could ask for a better neighborhood to be in to grow our business, not just from the coffee food perspective, but really more significantly from the automation and get our compostable materials or advanced manufacturing and compostable materials really going and scaled.
It's awesome to see sort of which niches you're able to tap into and leverage for your success. I know you're CEO of this scaling company. You're in 2 provinces. What are some of the things that are the obstacles, challenges that you sort of stay up with at night that keep you up? And what are the things that you're working through over the next little bit to really set Nexe up for some pretty significant market growth?
You know what? For us, it's really just getting all our end-to-end packaging systems communicating and processing well, building the proper staff. We're gonna, over the next while, we are actually already starting to centralize everything in Windsor. We have a big footprint there with about 60,000 square feet. So having as much as we can, everything under one roof is really going to be the key to make sure that we're efficient. And honestly, I think the worst is really behind us through the R&D, and now as we transition to production, there'll be new challenges, but it's challenges that we're up for. I mean, the one thing I'll say about our company is, we always have had the ability. We're very nimble, and we've always had the ability to pivot if need to. And you know what? We have some really good, smart people who are obsessed with getting this across the line, working for us. So it's we're in a good spot. Honestly, the sleepless nights are very few now versus a few years ago.
That's awesome. We've got some comments here from folks that have joined us. So Elizabeth Elias Hernandez, she's the head of YQG Green, which is a group of like-minded sort of businesses that come together and talk about sort of opportunities to grow sort of green economy here. They're hosting an event coming up in October with the city of Windsor. It's a green expo. And I just think of all these great opportunities for Nexe to really start to plug in and convert people to K-Cup coffee drinkers in a whole new way. It'll be interesting to see sort of that roll out for sure. Glad to know that you aren't too worried about anything in the evening time. You have this really great perspective.
We're laser focused.
Yeah.
We're laser focused on getting this across the line,
which is just awesome to sort of hear about. you can see, I think, from your perspective, a lot of different ways that technology is helping to play a really big role in how we move towards this like sustainable living piece of environmental protection. How else do you see technology really moving into the space in the coming years? Outside of the work that you're doing with Nexe.
Well, you know what I mean. Technology is going to be the main driver of getting clean tech really out in the world. Like, I mean, it's more automation. The demand is there.
Mm-hmm.
The price point has to be there, and it's really, yeah, it's just really going to be a function of getting automation. That's why I think, look, I mean, Windsor's been great in the sense, you guys are heading towards I'd say probably the EV capital of North America. So, you guys are becoming very green, and a lot of that is due to just the resources on the automation side here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so great. We've got consumers that are sort of tuned in here today, listening as well. What's some of the takeaways that they can use in their everyday lives to start to sort of minimize their impact on environment, outside of starting to drink Nexe coffee for their morning sort of cup? But what are those other ways that they're able to start to interface with this?
I think the big hurdle, or really understanding, being a greener planet. I think there's a lot of voices out there right now. There's a lot of greenwashing out there, and it's just really educating yourselves on how you could do your part to make the planet better. Like, I think education is really going to be key over the next few years. I mean, I think there's a lot of companies that talk about, or not even companies, but just in general, there's a lot of talk about green and ESG and such like that. But really, I think the biggest driver is going to be education, and people really taking the time to understand what it all means.
Yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree with that. And I think, just to add on is, there's a lot of like, it's all these little things, right? It's not the big movements that people are making, but there's so many different ways that you can do that. And, if it's changing up what your morning routine looks like, it's taking a bike to work a few days a week. Like there's so many different ways that folks can sort of engage in that way. Curious.
I think
Sorry,
you
go
nailed
ahead.
one thing right there, Adam. I think you nailed one thing. It's just taking the little steps, right? And a lot of that's going to be, you got to build your base and really understand what being green really means for the planet.
So on that subject of taking little steps, I know that Nexe isn't just a company that's creating something that's good for the planet, but you do a lot of work to ensure that, you've got your operations, supply chain, there's full transparency there, and the folks that you're using are in that space too. What are some of the processes that you use to ensure that the folks that you're working with are as passionate about sort of saving the planet as you are?
One of the things we've done over the last while, probably I'd say over the last 2 years, really, is we really take our time to get to know who our suppliers and vendors are. I think there's always been so much pressure on us because, this is such an amazing thing for the planet, to scale as quick as possible. I think one thing we've done right over the last few years, especially on the supplier vendor side, is really get to understand our suppliers, really make sure that our suppliers and vendors understand what we're trying to accomplish, and take our time to get to know some of the key people on the other side, even on a personal level, before entering a business relationship. And I feel it allows us to be more diligent. It creates an open communication between ourselves as well as our partners. And I feel it's really been the key to getting this whole vertical integration strategy going, is really understanding what we're looking for and what our suppliers can do for us. And also their passion about this project as well. So, and you know what? There's actually been some great relationships that we formed in the city of Windsor with some automation companies. So we're pretty happy with our approach to things now.
I love what you mentioned there about partnerships and almost thinking about that vendor-vendee relationship in a different way, right? It really is that partnership, and having an understanding of where the passions lie and where those sort of alliances are can be so helpful to, making lasting relationships too. That's the other thing. It's so easy for this stuff to, start a relationship, start a partnership, and it doesn't last as long as you need it to. So interesting that you're taking it in that direction.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the right way to go.
So when you look at companies today that are making that transition to being more, more conscious about the way that they make an impact on their environment, if you're a company that's starting to take those first steps, and we've got lots of, you mentioned we've got some really great automation companies that are in that space already and sort of thinking in that way. But maybe I'm a newer company, or maybe I'm a company that hasn't necessarily thought about how that's going to affect me yet. Where would you say, or would you suggest to start with that process of how do I actually start to dive into making my organization as green as possible and as minimize the impact as possible there?
Well, I think it's really stepping back and looking at what you're trying to accomplish with that element that you're talking about being more green. And it's actually a pretty tough question to answer. I think it's more within your organization, making sure you have like-minded people to begin with, and understand that mission, where you're just not feeding it down people's throats, and they feel it's more a job as opposed to something that they, as opposed to an initiative that you want people to be a part of. So it's really making sure, the first step is just making sure people are aligned, or people within your organization are aligned, really.
I guess that sort of starts with the why, right? Like why even go forward with this in the first place? Why does it matter? You had mentioned, as a new father, a big why for you is like what you want the world to look like at some point when your daughter is sort of ready to take it over. What does that world look like to you? What do you hope that she sort of inherits when she's ready?
You know what? For me, is just it's simple. It's just, we want to leave. Like for myself, it's really, you want to leave an impact, and you want your kids to be proud of what you're doing, and actually be able to say, hey, look, like, my dad was instrumental in, this whole green movement with the K-Cups, or at least one of the big pushers. And yeah, for myself more personally, it's just you want to leave the world a better place than when you first came into it. So and educate my kids, and hopefully they understand everything that we're doing is really to put to set up their generation and then generations after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, we're at such a pivotal, like a turning point, right, when it comes to that, where it's, we can continue on sort of current path, and we know that the outlook there is it's almost certain disaster, or we can make some really big changes, and really small changes as well, and sort of and move things forward, individually that way too. I'm curious, how did? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, sorry to cut you off there, but those little changes, like switching to a compostable pod, has a significant impact. Given the fact that worldwide 60 billion pods are consumed annually, so it's something that little movements can have a big impact.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you mentioned it yourself, right? Your wife said, take a look at the garbage can. Like, how many pods are you throwing out in a week? How many times do you have to empty that garbage bag and throw it out into the receptacle, right? It adds up for sure. And, our team at WEtech, we're only a team of 11 now. And most days we've got, 8 or 9 in office. You think about the impact that makes too. As a small organization, we're going through a lot of pods, right? And now we're going through a lot of pods that are going to compost as soon as we throw them out. That's a big difference. So it's interesting. We've got a lot of green companies in the portfolio now. As I mentioned, we've got this new program that launched sort of last year called i.d.e.a Fund that focuses in on helping companies to like leverage capital in order to make these sort of big changes and swing big as well on innovation. How can a green tech company balance that need for profitability with the larger goal of sustainability and environmental responsibility? What does that sort of look like in the boardroom as you're making these decisions? Because I imagine it's pretty difficult task to sort of figure out which direction to take decisions in sometimes.
Yeah, I think impact should always be number one, especially out the gate. Profitability is something that you worry about later down the road for sure.
Mhm.
It's really impact and is it sustainable? One of the questions we always get asked is, is can you compete with the plastic K-cup in terms of pricing for customers? Well, we have to,
Yeah.
and for now, if we weren't able to compete on pricing, we wouldn't really be doing what we're doing right now. Right now we're really focused on impact, and we'll worry
Mhm.
about profitability later. I mean, I could tell you we're not much different than plastic, especially at scale. But really, I'll start thinking about profitability after we've launched a few hundred million of these onto the planet every annually, and then we could start thinking about profitability. But right now, it's just impact.
I think that has a lot to do with how you built your company, though. And I think it has a lot to do with how you built your investor strategy as well. You're probably working
Mhm.
with investors where that impact is the most important thing, right? They don't care about the dollars and cents just yet. They care about is how many of these are you getting into the hands of normal consumers, right? And sort of moving from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think we've got almost 23,000 investors, all retail. I think, we're a startup, so people understand the risks to that.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think most of our investors are more focused on the impact right now. And I think when we start getting to a point where we're scaling and we're showing that growth, we'll get a new set of investors who are going to be more worried about profitability. But right now, it's just impact.
That's great. And I know that investors too, they're changing, right? How they expect to see their money perform. And there's all kinds of portfolios that are based specifically on sort of green impact. I think about locally too, we've got really great financial institutions like Libro working on environmental impact as one of their main pillars of things that they want to help offset and care about, and help encourage businesses to think in that way as well. So you're definitely starting to see that shift, and that makes a lot of sense from the perspective of our governments and policymakers sitting on my side of the table at an NGO who works to sort of deliver a lot of the messaging that our provincial and federal governments sort of roll out. What would you like to see in terms of supports and supporting the promotion and growth of that green tech industry? How can we do a better job of that sort of as a collective?
You know what? Again, it's even from the government perspective, a lot of it's going to be education, right?
Mhm.
There's it's easy to say, that whether it's provincial, local, or sorry, municipal or federal level, to say, hey, we really want to focus on green tech, but it's really, I think their job has to be or it has to be to better define that,
Yeah.
what that means, and educate the consumer on what that means. I mean, there's this whole battle going on right now on the single serve plastics, and uh, with the federal government and some larger companies now trying to challenge that. I mean, I think there has to be a little bit better time spent and some resources spent on educating why we need to head towards banning single-use plastics.
I agree, and maybe to put a finer point on what you're talking about, I think it's education on the elected official level as well, having their
Mhm.
understanding become deeper. Watching the TikTok hearings right now in Senate, And it's very clear that sometimes elected officials don't always have a full grasp on the technologies and stuff that they're sitting in front of to judge, right, and to make these decisions on. I think the same is for green technology too. We've got a lot of big business that advocates very loudly for continued things to continue the way they are, right, or making minimal or sort of surface level changes. But I agree. I think it comes down to education on that level too, and hopefully we see a lot of that. And with more companies like yours in our space, it's so much easier for us to go to our MPs and MPPs who are so passionate locally and so incredibly engaged and say, look, like, we've got something really cool here that is making a difference, and here's all these reasons why you should support it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So we're going to move into the Q&A.
I've got a loud puppy in the background who seems to be just throwing things around for some reason.
That's okay. I'm sure he's throwing only environmentally conscious things, like probably things that are fully compostable around, I imagine. All of the toys. Yeah. We've got some questions here from the Q&A. The first is, are you going to be having an open house when you launch officially?
Yeah, you know what? We are looking at an open house right now. I'm just trying to get our house in order, meaning get all the, like I said, being end to end, you want to make sure everything's working. And yeah, we will look to have an open house some point in the next few months, and we'll send out a big announcement. We're actually working on that with the Invest Windsor-Essex group, so I'm sure they'll make it well known. They do a great job.
They certainly do. Yeah, that was my background. So I worked with them for about 5 years prior to moving to WEtech. Great. So yeah. So excited to see that, and we'll definitely be in attendance there. Another question here is, what would you say your biggest business challenge is today?
Education. As we launch our pod at scale, it's really educating the consumer on difference between plastic, recyclable, compostable, biodegradable. So a lot of it's just going to be educating. I mean, I think everybody understands the benefits, but really how to do it, what it all means, is big. Like, I look at recycling, and I think there's a lot of money spent on the system on recycling, but the conversion rate is extremely low. So how are we going to, how are companies, like, not just us, it's on everyone that uses any type of compostable packaging, how are we going to educate the planet on really what that means?
Oh, for sure. And again, I think it just comes back to it's small changes, right? So it's, I think everyone now has heard that recycling is not as effective as it was initially billed as, right? You're getting, 70% in some cases of stuff that's still ending up in landfills. And so it comes down to, again, it's individual consumer sort of habits and moving things forward on that sort of individualized level. Are you able to sort of give up any advice to young people that are sort of joining us today, interested in pursuing a career in green technology? And what are some of the skills that you're always out there looking for, and knowledge that you think are sort of most important for success in this field?
You know what? For myself, when we're hiring now for roles, and a lot of that's just coming around, especially for a younger generation who are looking for a career, is once you realize you want to be in the space, is really become obsessed with the space. I mean, I think, we've hired people that, have experience at large corporations. We've hired people that don't have a lot of experience. And, we find that the best ones are the ones that are just obsessed with figuring out how to get the job done. So, just be obsessive. Be obsessive and persistent, and be open to learning new things. I mean, those are really the key drivers to having a successful career in green tech.
You have a comment in the chat there. Excellent advice, and any universal fit in any industry. And so the commenter is Joanne Suave, who is the CEO of WaveDirect. It's a local internet service provider here in Essex County. And to echo what you just said as well, we run a regular sort of monthly program called TeCK Connect Thursdays. We talk with employers, and we talk with folks from the tech space about sort of what they're looking for in terms of employment and skills. And you hit the nail on the head. It's about that desire for learning and the desire to continue to move forward with your knowledge base. I think about how fast technology is moving and how fast industry is moving. That's the deciding factor, right? It doesn't really matter what specific skills you have today. It's your capacity to learn the skills that you're going to need for tomorrow, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've had some of the people that have been with us the longest, they started in a role that was totally different than where they are today, and now they're leading the charge in their respective duties. So it's you have to be. I mean, even myself, like, I started off in the world of finance, and now I'm really involved in operations and making sure we get liftoff on this. And like I said, one of the main things is being nimble and being open, and being able to pivot as needed,
Mm-hmm.
and not being stuck on one element. So I think that's really the key.
You bring up, I think, an interesting point is, yeah, you started in a space where you were funding startups, and now you're one of them. What have been some of the biggest sort of learning takeaways that you've had in that journey from investor to operations? Because I imagine it's been a bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, no, it has been, but it's been a challenge. You know, again, it's a lot of hard work,
Of course.
bringing and making sure you surround yourself with the right people who are willing to put in the hours just as you are. And I think that's what we've got here right now is we've got a special team that sees the upside in what we're doing and really believe in that, and yeah, are obsessed in getting it across the line.
Well, we are so grateful that you consider not just WEtech here, but the team at Invest Windsor-Essex, the University of Windsor, the college. We take this approach to entrepreneurship, I think, locally. That is, we want to be part of your team. We consider ourselves a part of that team and a part of your, your driving force behind what you're doing. And we hear your message, and we're just so excited to be able to help echo it and help get it out there. Because, there are really cool things coming out of this region, and the whole world needs to know about it. And we're so excited to tell more of those stories.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're excited to be here. I mean, it's a great community. It seems every time I'm usually there once every 3 weeks right now, and like I said, Darren's moved there full time since summer. And no, it's a great community. I mean, it amazes me how quick our building was finished, and we gutted that thing and got that up and running, and City of Windsor's been great on that end as well. But no, the people are amazing. Like nobody's scared of hard work. Nobody's scared to put in the hours. And yeah, I mean, it's been a positive response being in that in Windsor for sure.
That's so great. Well, maybe we'll cap it off today with just one last sort of final word from you in terms of what is the most important message that someone can take away that isn't in this green tech industry. Maybe they're interested in supporting more of a sustainable future. What would you tell them, and how can they sort of take away from this the type of education that you're looking for?
You know what? I think the thing to take away, green tech is the future. Whether you believe it or not, it's happening. We need green tech to work in all aspects, because we're seeing changes to our climate all the time. We're seeing changes to our planet all the time, and I think the more efforts we put to things like green tech, the planet's going to be in better shape a lot longer. So yeah, it's just really educate yourselves on green tech.
Absolutely. So Ash, next time you're in Windsor, can I say coffee's going to be on you when we get together?
Absolutely. Come by the facility. We'll have a few cups of coffee. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for sharing today. We really appreciate your insights and just taking the time as well. I know you're sort of getting over a bit of a cold and fighting a wild dog over there, so we really appreciate it. We cannot wait to celebrate your continued growth and success. Really looking forward to kicking and supporting Nexe as you continue to ramp up your Windsor-Essex YQG presence. To our virtual audience, thank you so much for joining us for Green Tech Day. We hope that you found this event informative and engaging. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, this concludes our last official TeCK Week YQG event. But TeCK Week continues to live on far beyond this. Keep an eye on your email inbox for recordings of sessions, on our website for all information reporting or relating to the sessions that were taking place this week and the events that we had, recaps of those as well, and anything that you may have missed, photos, key information, it's all coming your way. So keep an eye on your inbox there. And if you're a company or entrepreneur with an innovative or tech idea and looking to scale, we highly encourage you to reach out to myself, the whole venture service team here, and set up a discovery meeting. We look forward to connecting with you and really supporting your growth. And if you're joining us today with a company in the green innovation space, did we ever have a program for you? So you can see behind me there, I'm so excited to announce that the applications for cohort 2 of the i.d.e.a Fund program are now open. And the i.d.e.a Fund program is a Southern Ontario focused initiative that really helps clean innovation firms unlock their potential and access the capital and mentoring needed to commercialize innovative technologies. With funding from the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, 6 regional innovation centers across Southwestern Ontario, including WEtech Alliance, we've combined our efforts to offer select businesses the opportunity to rework and launch their products, services, processes, and technologies with a focus on reducing impact on the environment. If you're an incorporated business located in Southern Ontario with high growth potential and have fewer than 500 employees, you might qualify. If selected, your business can receive non-repayable seed funding up to $30,000 with matching funds and up to 40 hours of fully funded targeted support from business leaders and mentors from around the globe. I can't understate or overstate the importance of these incredible mentors that we have around this program. We just closed our cohort 1 yesterday and got to hear from all of the companies that participated from around the region and beyond. And the takeaway was that those mentors that we provide you with really are that difference between taking things to the next level. So even if you think, you've got a really good handle on your space, there's always people out there that have done this stuff before. They've been on these journeys, they've been in your shoes, and they're really able to help push you to what comes next. So please don't miss out on this opportunity to grow and accelerate your business. You can apply for cohort 2 before April 17th, 2023. Now, before we say goodbye, we've got one last request to make. You may have seen a poll that popped up on your screen. Your feedback is so important to us, so please take a quick moment to answer that. And then following this poll, if you have any other feedback, please share it with us via email at info@wetech-alliance.com. And we hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us for TeCK Week YQG 2023. We are so excited to welcome you back in 2024 and have lots of exciting things to share with you until then. Until then, though, please stay engaged, stay connected. We can't wait to see you at our next WEtech Alliance initiative. Ash, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Take care.